There she is.
Good morning.
Morning. Laura, did you get my text?
You sent me a text?
You don't have to read it. All I said was I'd recommend pulling the CTE piece out of consent so we can have a more robust conversation on it.
That's a wonderful idea. So I will call the special meeting of July 9th of the Wenatchee School Board to order and turn it straight over to Paul.
Good morning, everybody. We've got a couple pieces on our agenda. The first piece out of the gate will be the consent agenda. And I'll hand it back over to you, Laura, for what you want to do with the consent agenda. But again, I would recommend that we pull the CTE out of consent, and we'll just put that into a discussion action item down below.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. So our action item on the agenda this morning is the consent agenda, and that consists this morning only of the contracts piece. If we are pulling the piece about the trailer for more discussion, we have a contract with Central Washington University, Northwest University, the 911 driving school, a renewal of the ESD title app, and the Puget Sound Purchasing Co-op contracts. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda so amended?
So moved.
Great, thanks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, wait, this will be a roll call. Walt, Martin,
Aye.
Maria,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Julie,
I'm an I, but I can't hear you.
oh.
Hmm.
That's a problem.
Yeah, because everybody else can hear Laura, right? A thumbs up.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
We'll give Julie just a minute.
While Julie is checking, just a clarification. When we have an intern, the intern is actually our employee. Yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah, still falls under all of the other guidance.
Yeah, on our L&I and our everything else. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I want to just go back to Julie for a second. You had said I. Are you
Yes, I'm
still good with that?
now.
Okay, I am also an I, and that motion passes. So next we will, do you want to discuss the trailer here?
Yeah.
Or do you want
Yeah.
to?
Let's do the trailer first because Jake's
Okay.
with us, and then we can move into the Canvas conversation. And Jake doesn't need to be with us on that one if he chooses to be. He certainly can stick around. Does the board want to do that first?
Sure.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I'm going to hand it quickly off to Jake to kind of give the background on this opportunity to purchase this mobile lab to build skis and snowboards. We have something similar that we're currently doing, but not to this level. Jake, you want to walk us through what this is, the financing of it, the liability side of it that you've worked with Clear Risk on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So first of all, thanks for having me this morning. So this is something that Doug has been looking into for quite a while. As you know, he does do some ski building currently, but he's really been looking at how to improve the experience for kids and improve the speed of the process. And so by working through this company that will manufacture this community fabrication, they'll put this together and it'll allow us to have more kids building at the same time. But also the biggest thing is the software and the tooling technology to do things in a lot more rapidly. So I do have a presentation that I had prepared before. And if you don't mind, I was just going to go through that, and hopefully that will help not for me to not miss a bunch of stuff. So I guess, Ron, are you in control of this as far as moving through slides, or?
Yeah, I'll control the slides.
Okay, perfect. So let's go to the next one. So the first thing, so custom skis, snowboards. So just again, this is around the student experience, the student opportunity to build and create and use the knowledge that they're getting in their engineering and their AutoCAD design courses, and then pulling in some material science piece. So that's one of the goals kind of over the next few years, is how do we move into some of the material science and move towards the fabrication piece using a lot of these different newer materials and the technology behind those. So this is a step towards that direction that we want to take in the CTE department. Next slide. So, and then you can actually cruise through this one too. There's just more pictures, and what you're looking at are pictures of other schools and the trailer that they have. But it really does use all of the different areas, whether it's science, engineering, technology. There's an artistic piece with it, mathematics, all of that. So next slide. So materials, composite science, again, that's an area that we want to try and improve for us. Technology, ski design, graphics, software, power tools, engineering. It's an iterative process. It's going to be over and over. And that's the piece that is a huge improvement for us. Is before, it would take a fairly extended amount of time for a student to go through and create their first pair. But then there wasn't necessarily the time, really the engineering process of going back and refining. And so with this technology and the facility, we'll be able to be a lot more rapid. And I have a slide about that, that'll kind of give you an idea of the time difference and what we're talking about. So that's an example of what one looks like. There can be discussion around the design of it, whether you like it or not on the outside, but the inside is what we're talking about with all of the tooling and the software and how everything's integrated. So, okay, so hopefully to answer some of the questions up front. So why mobile? Space limitations within the building. So it's possible to get all of the tooling and everything inside of the classroom, but that then takes up that real estate permanently within that classroom. And so with our limitations here at the high school, we felt like the mobile option helped us with that. Secure, safe consolidation of equipment. It's something that we can lock up. It's behind a gated area as well as being locked up. We don't need to go through extending the building or adding on to the building or anything like that. We can have 10 student stations. That's simultaneous building. So when you start cycling kids through the design process happening elsewhere, it's more rapid. The add-on bonus really that we were excited about, setting aside the space limitations, it's really about we're able to then connect and hopefully build community support for what we're doing in CTE. And that trailer is movable, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but movable to locations. And so when we talk about that iterative design process and kids creating and then testing and then creating and testing, it's actually possible that we could move that to on-site locations or to other, maybe if we wanted to go to a middle school and showcase what it is that we can do in the CTE engineering department. If we wanted to do a weekend showcase at Pybus or, whatever it may be, there's those options with that being mobile and walking the public through. So next slide. So in my discussion with Clear Risk, these are some of the things. Well, this is what our discussion really was around. Is you know what is it that they're comfortable with? What are we really trying to do? So on the insurance requirements, no private vehicles be used to move the trailer. So we're only going to use district vehicles, and we're really not planning on doing that up front. Because number two, anyone who's pulling the trailer must be trained through a training course offered by Clear Risk. So if I wanted to have some CTE staff pull that trailer, I'm not going to do that until we go through that Clear Risk trainings course. Obviously, let's go back. If a district vehicle is used, it must meet all the requirements to tow the trailer. We do have one vehicle set up to tow gooseneck trailer of this size in our CTE department. Again, that's not our intention at the beginning. Our intention would be if we want to move it, we would use a professional service to move it when that happens. It's not going to be very often, but that's just kind of the added bonus of it. And so that's kind of our plan until we go through all that training and everything. So and that was number 4 there. Number 5 on the liability piece of the selling of the skis. And so the idea is not to become a ski manufacturer. It's not to just create skis, put them on a website or market them to sell out on spec. What we're really trying to do, and this is where the connection comes in for kids, is taking the knowledge and skills they're getting in the classroom. And we talk about this all the time. We talk about relevancy of learning. You know, why are we learning this? And so here we have an opportunity to have students take skills and knowledge that they have and turn that directly into a business opportunity and understand the business side of it. And so what we are allowed to sell is an experience. So we sell an experience to a person to come in, and then we walk them through the process of them designing their own skis, and we help them build that. So if students partner with a community member, or maybe they're not a community member, but somebody, they partner with them and they walk them through that build. And that's where I think the magic is with, now you're taking classroom learning and you're putting it into this real life, service type industry. I'm working with you. We're going to work together in partnership to create what it is that you want, and then we sell that to you. So next slide. Please jump in if you have questions.
Jake, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you go back to that last slide, Ron?
Yep.
So this just pertains to that. So so it sounds like you're not planning on having district vehicles pull this trailer. Is
Not for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
No.
So so for the professional groups that would be pulling it, I would assume that they have to also be trained through the training course offered by Clear Risk Solutions. Is that correct?
That I don't know. When I talked to him about the professional, he didn't say that they needed to be. So I would lean towards, and I can ask him, but when we were talking about that, because I shared that with him too, I said, here's the intent of kind of moving us towards this is we're not moving it very much, number one. Number two, I would prefer to use a professional service. And he didn't say, oh, well, they have to be cleared by us, because
they're probably used to moving big vehicles, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So,
So.
okay.
Sorry, I thought you'd finished. I'll go next.
So if we were to pursue a district vehicle in the future to pull this, do we have something that can, I guess I'm not sure I saw the gross weight of the trailer and the outside dimensions. I mainly saw like inside dimensions for floor space. So I'm wondering if we didn't have the professional option in terms of district vehicle, do we currently have anything that can pull this that's equipped with the right hookups and the right weight and everything? So.
Yeah, we do. We have one in the CTE for ag. It currently pulls a gooseneck. It's not quite as long, but we use that to haul steel and different stuff for the metal fabrication shop and whatnot. So we do have a truck that is set up for it. I just don't really want to start out with us just pulling it around necessarily.
And as far as insurance, just in terms of when we have this trailer out on the road,
Yep.
do we need to have a separate rider for our district for damages and such?
According to the person I spoke with at Clear Risk, we do not. It is covered. I asked him that specific question around when we are towing with a district vehicle, is this covered under kind of like our auto insurance or whatever? And he said yes. We just need to add it to our list of I can't remember what he said, our list of coverages.
Additionally insured or something like that.
Take possession.
Great, thank you.
Jake, this is Martin. You have answered my two questions about professional liability and product liability because you've taken them out of the activity. So we're more like a rafting company or a paragliding company with waivers. So I think those were two things that I saw as being a major issue, and it is now clear that you got a good answer from Clear Risk. And quickly mentioning on the trailer, if we schedule our trailer on our vehicle policy, it's probably, I don't know, $15 to $50 a year additional insurance, and it can be pulled by any other legal CDL or other towing vehicle. And a contractor will have all of the standard licensing, liability, and other things that you would need for that. And they would, if they were towing it, they would be the primary person. I would just custom and practice.
Perfect. Thank you.
I do have some other questions, but I don't want to jump ahead if it's something you're covering already. Do you have more slides in your presentation?
We have more, but we can go either way. I can keep going or I can answer now. So,
well, okay. So my question is regard to timing, since we are, looking at restarting school in a hybrid type situation at this point. Is this, related to the financial side and the classroom instruction side is, I'd like some discussion about the budget and where the money is coming from and why this is appropriate to spend this money at this time. And then in terms of instruction, is this assisting us at all? How are we going to manage social distancing, hands-on experiences with multiple students? Is, probably going to put them in close proximity unless I'm mistaken. So I'd like you to address that.
Yeah. So let's go through. Can I come back to that on the budget piece? Because I have a slide set up for that.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was asking.
So just to kind of clarify on some location access, site prep stuff. So this is where we're talking about within the, and this is just one option. There's a couple options of location there. That's all within the fenced area off of the back of the engineering classroom there. Next slide. 50 amp to be installed. That's available. I've met with district electrician and all that. Don't need water. We're going to add a gate to that fence. So some of that modification of the fencing comes to about $750. So that's relatively simple, and we'll be taking care of that. Next slide. So this a little bit, the social distancing question. I mean, to be real honest, I think that's something we're trying to figure out for all spaces. It certainly would reduce the number of kids that could be in that space at any one time. just like any other classroom, the space is going to get reduced. But so I don't necessarily have a great answer for that right now. But I guess I'm looking at this. This purchase is for, for kind of the long haul, and hopefully we can get through this, sooner rather than later. But we'll do what we need to do as long as we can, or as long as we have to. Just kind of student impact. How many kids will be using this? According to the schedule right now, there's about 46 students that would be using this, and then of course this is going to be every year, and hopefully we're able to grow the program. I talked a little bit about timing on iterative design process. So the old system took about 2 months to create a pair of skis from start to finish, and this is about 2 weeks, and that's class time. So that's just 2 weeks worth of class periods. It really can be done in a 1 weekend event. I mean, they could come in over 8 to 10 hours and go, if they knew their design as far as the graphics and all that, because that's where people can spend a lot of time. But if they knew that, they could go start to finish in about 10 hours on a pair of skis. So we talked about opportunity to share learning and translate skills to a marketable outcome. So we'll go ahead and go next slide. I don't know if you guys have any choice about the single source option, or any questions about single source, but that was what that was about. So next slide. This is a question that I kind of had in my head that I wanted to address, is community competition. And I wanted to be clear that we are not interested in becoming a ski manufacturer and competing with local businesses. In fact, with our current ski building program, Mission Ridge and Arlberg are both very supportive of our program. And again, we're not going to go out and start mass marketing and selling skis. Plus, it's really to a completely different consumer. Somebody going in to buy skis at Arlberg is not the same one who's calling to set up and design from start to finish their own pair. It's not really the same thing. So yeah, I mean, there are two at the bottom there. There are two very, very low volume craft ski makers in the area. One here in Wenatchee and one up in Peshastin. But again, super low volume. So next slide. Overall cost. This comes to the budget question. And so we have in our budget, there are funds that are left over from the year and we need to spend down to a certain point to avoid recovery. And so if these monies are not spent, they go back to the state. And so, and obviously they can only be spent on CTE items. And so this is something that's been on the back burner for a while, and the opportunity came up with the amount of money that we had. This is certainly not the only project that we're doing with those dollars in that plan to get down below the recovery line, but it is one of them. So I don't know if that answers your question enough, Laura. Happy to answer more. But it's,
okay.
it's
So
really,
what is the deadline for the spend down? And also, is the extra money or the surplus associated with not spending during this COVID period?
yeah, so the deadline is August 31st. So August 31st is the deadline to spend and have that budget down below the recovery line. And some of it is associated to the COVID period with lack of travel and that kind of thing. So not traveling as much and having some of those conventions and whatnot definitely saves some money, but certainly you can pick where those dollars go. There would still be, there's still money there. And so I don't want to say it's completely because of that, but certainly that would be a factor.
I would also say it's important that it's one-time expenditures and not ongoing costs, like hiring staff out of these dollars is not a wise piece because they're just carryover one-time expenditures.
Yeah, that's big. It's not something that we could that I would feel comfortable committing to an ongoing expense because of that. The other thing is just with the longevity of it, I feel comfortable with the expense with the longevity of the item versus maybe some other items that are not necessarily going to last as long. So,
what about, are there any additional costs to factor in as far as if we need the professional companies to come in and move it, and or any type of additional maintenance on the trailer that we should be looking at?
Yeah. I mean, and so there's definitely with any vehicle that we have, we're going to expect that there's ongoing maintenance, and we're going to expect, and then there is the cost to move it from one location to another, and those are built into, or not currently not, but those would be built into the CTE budget. To take care of those items in the future. I think those are relatively low costs and can be and would be taken care of through the CTE budget moving forward. Okay.
Jake, I have 3 questions. Why is this your number 1 priority for using the carryover funding?
Well, I wouldn't say it's my number 1. It just is, it's one of the many projects that we're doing right now. And so, I don't know that it's a number 1, but what I do think is what my goal is to strengthen each of the CTE programs as much as I possibly can. I mean, through working with CTE staff, what do we need to improve the student experience? What do we need to do to engage students at a higher level and increase the number of kids being part of the program? And so everything that comes up, I kind of look through that lens of, is it going to draw more kids in? Is it going to be more engaging? Is the experience going to be better? And so, like I said, this is one of many projects, but all of those projects are going to meet those goals. And if they don't, then I don't think it's what we want to be putting our resources into. So,
Martin, I would jump in just a little bit onto that piece. In the bigger scale of pieces, as we begin our work around our strategic plan, one of the pieces that the former strategic plan had that I believe will be a component of our one going forward is this idea around real world experiences for students. What we know about our kids is they have to be engaged. They have to be able to manipulate things. They have to be able to fail. They have to be able, it's that whole iterative process. And this is a great launching point for where I believe we should be going with many of our students, hands-on real world experiences. And I think that's the piece that really attracts me to this work, because it is a STEM, but it also kind of that STEM plus with business and marketing, that kids can see from the beginning phase all the way to the marketing side of the house, which are critically important skills for our kids to know, understand, and be able to do. So I see this as one of those pieces in the bigger scale of where we're trying to go as a district, and where the district actually really was making some good progress. So we need to kind of pick that back up. But this is another example of that work.
Yeah, I would add on to that. I'd just say, I mentioned, other programs, and it all, when I'm looking at all the programs, it's exactly that. It's how do we put in the foundational change, the structure that allows kids to do the things that we're all asking or hoping that they're able to do. And that is to take the learning and translate it and take that next step. And so just an example, I mean, we've done a lot of work with our health occupations program over the last 2-3 months and into the next couple months with doing the same kind of thing. And that is improving our facilities to really ramp up and improve the student experience with ratios. And so we're going from a lab of 3 beds to a lab of 8 beds, and that kind of thing of how do we make the hands-on ratio, support the level of engagement and hands-on that we want, and we have to have the spaces to do that. So that's where I think a lot of these extra dollars are going into these types of improvements, and this is just one of them. So
the last piece on that topic, I think a piece for me that's going to be really important in the future is this whole idea of return on investments for our students when they're engaged in real world experiences. I think it's important for our kids to be able to experience the things that Jake is talking about before going into college and careers. They should have experiences like the health fields, like business opportunities, like marketing, like engineering. So they know that, man, I went out there and I experienced those things. That is exactly what I want to be doing. Or, maybe that's not something where I want to be spending my parents or my money in college or even at technical schools. But really trying to give kids a real sense of what they want to be doing in life before they're going out into the colleges and spending some significant dollars. I think it's something that we've got to continue thinking about, is that return on investment for kids, so they have these unique experiences. So they're setting themselves up for that career as an electrician, or going into a community college, or into a 4-year university, but having a better sense of what they want. And it's these experiences that I think help kids understand what is marketing. It all sounds good, but what's some of that work that we have to do to be able to actually experience becoming a person who runs a marketing company, who engineers, who does that type of design thinking. So I think, again, I just see this as a beautiful connection to where we want to go as a district, where we've been and where we want to, amplify it in the future.
I should have prefaced my earlier comments with the fact that Doug Merrill is an award-winning instructor, and I am consistently impressed with the fabulous programs, hands-on experiential programs that he brings forward to his students. It's been amazing to watch over time, and he's garnered, quite a bit of positive attention to our district, including the Guinness Book of World Records, which was kind of exciting. Our governor visited his classroom in the past, and a number of other statewide officials. So I'm not, just so you know, I'm not questioning the validity of that experiential program, because Doug is a fantastic instructor, really got his best interest of the kids in mind. So do you have more, Jacob?
I have my other 2 questions.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Martin.
Sorry, Martin.
Yep. 2 more questions
Okay,
for Martin.
Jake, that was a testing probe to make sure that it looks like a really good project, and just to make sure that you had it right in that standout zone, which is a good answers. My next question is just a general one, because it is a long-term project and it's exciting. Do you have the ability, say 5-8 years from now, and skis and snowboards are no longer sexy things, and we can gut part of the inside for 50% of the budget and have a whole new industry? I'm assuming that's not your plan, but I'm assuming once you've got the trailer, you've got that flexibility.
Yeah, we would have flexibility to retool that to manufacture, anything else that we wanted to manufacture. We would, the biggest cost probably at that point would obviously be the new tools, whatever those would be, and then the software piece around the design that goes with that tooling. So, but yeah, we would be able to do that.
Yeah, so it's a versatile investment, which is good.
Yep.
This is not one of my questions. This is an aside for Paul. For 20 years, I've thought we should do exactly the same kind of marketing thing with our fine crafts and handiwork people in the high school. Leavenworth imports all its stuff. If you go to north of California, they make it locally. So just put that in the long-term planning.
Well, I can actually talk about that a little bit.
Okay, go ahead then.
Right now. I mean, so one of the other projects, that we're talking about when we're talking about these projects to do this type of thing is the work that we're doing right now with our art program, with our visual arts and our art productions. So we're creating a lab space that has that multiple teachers will share, that has all of that equipment, whether it's routing machines or it's vinyl cutters or it's UV printers or whatever, to create all of these things, t-shirt presses, embroidery, all of that information or all of that stuff. And so the idea though is not just creating and making something because it's a school project. The idea is now bringing in business and marketing, and we're tying those things together, and our hope is to create an environment where departments are working with each other, and students are learning multiple disciplines around the creation of this thing that they're very interested in, that then can be shared with others for a cost or not. So so that concept is taking hold and moving forward. So
great. My last question is on the negative side. I hadn't thought about it before your presentation. When you bring in, I'll call the person the customer working with the student, you're bringing an outsider into a school environment. Could you quickly walk us through what that implies and how you'd handle it?
Right. As far as any type of waiver or anything like that, I don't know. To be real honest, I don't know if we would handle it in a way that, say, we have somebody come into a concert event or a sporting event. I don't know, because in that sense, we don't really do a whole lot with them. Or would we have them go through the background check type process like we do for a field trip or something? I would say that we would, on the side of erring on the side of caution, we may have them go through that background check, because they will be in fairly close proximity for an extended number of hours. And so I would say we would go that direction, and then probably not a whole lot more, because that would be pretty consistent with other practices across the district.
Yeah,
But
and they'll also be
that's open
touching
for
your
discussion.
equipment and using stuff from an accident point of view, potentially.
Right. Gotcha.
So you need to think through that a little bit, but yeah. Okay.
Jake, I have a real quick question because I have to head off to a meeting, sorry. So I know in the past some of our CTE courses have not had the best spread of demographics, not a lot of diversity. And I'm wondering kind of the current classes, because we're trying to look at more equity in our district. And I'm wondering how the CTE programs are looking to address that. This sounds like a really exciting project, but I don't want us to overlook if we're constantly, attracting only certain students and not all our students. How are we going to change that so our demographics look a little more spread throughout all our CTE programs and not just certain ones?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that that this will make this more attractive to more people from different backgrounds and everything. But I'm really interested in hearing that. So.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you. And hopefully I'll be back to talk with you in August about another item that I have planned that is exactly what you're talking about, a way to bring in students that are underrepresented. But then for right now, it's going to be really identifying who we're missing in each program. And then it's going to be looking at how do we recruit those students and putting that plan in place. I don't want to sit here and say I have that plan for each individual program right now, but that is my goal before we get rolling into the next school year for the fall, for the next cycle of scheduling. that we've got to have a recruiting plan that is going to get kids into each of these. And I know some of the programs where we're lacking, but not all of them yet. And so I got to look at that data. I guess I want you to know that's very high on my list. You know, when Martin talked about what's your number one priority, well, I can tell you one of the top priorities for me is the equity piece in education and getting these kids, all kids, an experience that's going to connect them to a career. So it's about bringing in the right programming and then taking the programming that you have and making sure that they understand how they fit into that programming. A lot of times kids won't start a program or kind of shy away from it because they don't see how they fit into it. But either visually they see that they're not represented currently, so they don't want to take that first step, or it's not something that they're traditionally that people around them have been involved in. And so it's really trying to create that vision for the student to say, hey, here's how you could do this. Here's how this would look, and getting that initial movement, and then hopefully build critical mass to where now we have a free flowing of all demographics into and out of all programs. So.
And I just have one final question. Production time for getting this trailer made, I didn't see a time.
16 weeks. 16 weeks.
16 weeks. Thank you.
Yep.
I want to offer a challenge to our district personnel, because what I heard you say is we are going to develop a plan that will enable us to inform students how they fit into our program.
Absolutely.
And my challenge is kind of the reverse of that. How do we develop programs? You talked about relevance. How do we develop programs that are relevant? So that's kind of automatic when students of color or girls versus boys can see themselves fitting into the program because it's something they're already interested in. It's my challenge to you.
I think it's a great challenge, because you're right. The old methodology is fit people into what we have currently always done, as opposed to thinking big, broad around what do our kids need now? What do our kids need? Continue to lead with the students as the focus. I love that challenge, Laura, and we're going to take that one on.
Good. Okay. Martin, did you finish your 3 questions? You're muted, so I can see your lips moving, but I don't hear you.
I'm done.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? We see that Michelle had to move along, but we still have a quorum, so we're good to go. And Jacob or Paul, do you have anything further to add?
No, I'm good. Jake?
Okay, so I think it's time for us to call for the question. We've had a very robust discussion on the topic, and I do appreciate that. It felt a little last minute and, all that kind of stuff, but I now, can see the rationale for why that has occurred. So is there a motion on this contract with, what is it, Community Foundations?
Fabrication.
Community Fabrication, excuse me, yeah.
I can propose that we approve the contract with Community Fabrication for $88,000 and sales tax to manufacture and deliver a trailer and working lab for CTE. And I would like to add the ancillary minor costs of installing it in the fenced backyard.
Great. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Maria,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. We will be moving on to our next item, which is discussion of our Canvas Learning Management System agreement.
All right. Again, big thanks to Jake for spending a little bit of time with us. But now we're going to hand this over to Ron, as he walks us through a learning management system based off of, and there's really the thinking around this really came from our surveys, our focus groups, and what people were telling us on literally the most consistent basis was we have to have one-stop shopping. And Ron's going to kind of walk you through what that means to us and how that actually supports students, staff, and parents. Ron?
I'm going to close my door, sorry. Just wanted to thank everybody again for supporting this. And the LMS, we heard from focus groups, as Paul said. I don't have any slides or anything. You guys have the board report questions that we shared with you. Conceptually, and what a learning management system allows us to do is to create a one platform location for staff to, I look at it as post a virtual classroom for their kids. So this will prepare us for what we might feel like is an eventuality of some small closures, and really preparing ourselves for what we have hoped for a long time to get our kids ready for their future. It doesn't provide the content. It doesn't provide the information we're giving to kids from the teachers. What it does is it gives us a place to house it so that it's consistent for parents, it's consistent for kids, it's consistent for staff. I think that's the biggest disconnect we had this spring. We worked really quickly to go online this spring, and I think we did really well with that, with as much as we could do. But we had various systems. We had Google Classroom, we had various systems at our K-5s, and none of those really had a cohesive interface for parents. None of those had, if you had multiple students at multiple levels as a parent, it was difficult then to manage what does my third grader see compared to my sixth grader compared to my ninth grader. So a learning management system allows us to have all staff use one system to post their stuff, essentially is what it means. So they still have that autonomy of their classroom, but their classroom looks a little different. So they're going to present their learning objectives, they're going to present their big ideas, they're going to present their assessments, they're going to present activities, videos, whatever they might have done in all the other various platforms, but it'll come from a central location. That's the main thing this gets us. And then the other thing this gets us then is a consistent parent interface. So if I'm a parent of a student, whether it's in our homeschool partnership program, our online school program, or we might have some kids enrolled in this year, or if we are truly hybrid, as we're speaking of, we will have that one place where everybody knows where it is. Everybody knows how to get into it. It offers Spanish and English versions, so we can support our Spanish language families, and they have a better visibility as a parent to support their kids and what the kids are being asked to do. So we went through a process with, there's about 35, depending on the day. It was very quick, and it's during July, or during the end of June. So we asked a lot, but we had about 30 to 37 typically participating across the board, committee to vet and look at 5 LMSs, one of which we had used prior, Google Classroom. I wouldn't call it an LMS. It's kind of a light one. It gives you a spot to put stuff, but not in a very consistent way. And then we reviewed 4 others that have been used around our state or around the country in K-12, and had demos from the companies. Everybody had trial accounts. Everybody also we did like notice questions. We did a lot of research on their own time during the short evaluation process. And then we had multiple criteria we were looking for, as I put in the board report. It's got to be friendly with all the systems we already have. We don't want to retrain and retool everything. We want to use what we currently use and house it in this management system. So this doesn't change what we offer for curriculum. It just lets us put that curriculum in a digital format and present it to kids and families. had to have a Spanish language component to help our families out. It had to be friendly for staff, so our learning curve, we're talking about training, 600 plus. And we do plan on using this in the operational side, professional development, professional learning communities with staff. So this will be where we really do any teaching and learning activities, whether that's with adults or with kids in our system moving forward. I provided you a little bit of data. They did lots of surveys and they did lots of evaluations based on some rubrics that I had put together. And really we had top two. We had a program called Schoology and a program called Canvas. And then the committee truly felt, and our state really has an impetus to move toward Canvas. We have a state bid. They actually are on a state contract with WSD. So that helps us in pricing. And it also helps that our local community college also uses Canvas. So there's a great stepping stone. Our Running Start students will be able to, integrate really nicely, but also just kids in our own system will be able to jump into our local JCs or many of our higher ed institutions in the state and really pick it right up because it's the same platform. And it's a company that's their whole purpose is education. They're not a business first. They're an education first company. It's Instructure is the name of the company behind it. They're out of Salt Lake City, but their whole goal is improving K-12 education. It's not about, or actually K-20 in their case, but it's not about business. They're really on the education side. So overwhelmingly, the committee chose Canvas as our platform, and we felt it's going to give us the best thing when we say 10 years from now, what's going to be there and support everything we want to do, from all the stuff Jake just talked about. All of those kind of things can be housed in this kind of system. So you saw the costs and the recommendation that we're putting forward, and we just think it'll be incredibly well spent, especially as a way to help out our families. Considering we might be hybrid / online at the drop of a hat next year. So our plan right now, and working with learning and teaching, I'm working with Stacy Bain and Mike Lane. We want to make sure we're using this in class also. So we're going to be using this K-12, whether the student's at home or whether they're in class, so that we have teachers trained, we have kids trained, everybody knows the routines, everybody knows where things are at. And if we close for some reason, especially during this pandemic, we shouldn't miss a beat picking up the next day of full online delivery if the worst case happens next year. But thinking beyond that, I think I really tried to convince the group, and I think they did a very good job, beyond our current situation, what's going to get us where we want to get to 10, 15 years from now. And this is a product and a decision I think it'll get us there. And we will keep using it regardless of any pandemic or hybrid learning that happens. It's just a good model to get to at some point, tracking mastery, tracking standards of students, having a really consistent interface to understand where kids are at, where our students are at in their learning, and communicating that to the families. So at the end of the day, it's the right decision regardless. You just like everything the last 4 months, we've gotten here faster and differently than we might have done in the past. But we will be in a better place long term, even when we hopefully exit this soon. So you guys have lots of data on that report I gave you. There's a ton more than that. If you had other things you were curious about, I could send some things to you offline, but there was a preponderance of evidence that led the group toward that unanimous decision to adopt this particular LMS.
I do have questions, but I want to
Yep.
give the other board members the opportunity to go first if there are any. No? Okay, so my questions, I know we had a tight time frame. We have been criticized pretty heavily in the past for not involving all the stakeholders in our decision-making process. I heard you say that 30 staff, excuse me, participated in the vetting process, and yet we have students, staff, including teachers and district administrative staff and parents utilizing the system. So my question is, it doesn't appear that anyone else except teachers was involved in the vetting process, and I'm wondering why. And I'm also wondering if there is an opportunity still to have parents and students participating in a trial demo.
I think one of the pieces where we did collect their feedback was not on the product, but on the what are they seeking. And that's what literally led us to where we're at, when students were telling us, hey, there were too many pieces and parts that were all over the place on our Google platform and every other platform we were using. We really heard that from our parents as well, that they needed one way to be able to organize it. They wanted it clean. They wanted it very clear on how to be able to access the information. So although they weren't in the vetting of the tool itself, they told us what they needed. And we continue to use that lens. Ron continued to bring that lens, and our teachers who are parents as well. We had many parents as teachers on this committee who were distance learning themselves. They recognize and being able to use the lens of the student and the parent. I do believe we selected the right thing and kept what we heard from our students and parents on there. But ultimately, were they part of the vetting? No. But did we bring forward their message? I believe we absolutely did. Ron?
Yeah, and the hard part about these is as Paul said, it is a tool. Our top two, honestly, we could have gone either way. As far as a product that people use, when we set out the rubric criteria around friendliness for parents, we looked at the parent app, we looked at the parent login, friendliness for students, we looked at their logins, the dual language aspect. We did evaluate all those criteria that our parents did say were important. It was really more of a timing issue. We have a lot of work to do in the next 6 months or 6 weeks to get all of our first units done in here and ready to go, so that our teachers are hitting the ground running without an incredible workload. So we did want to stand something up very quickly. So we only vetted products we knew, regardless of which one we picked, they all would have worked, and they all would have worked fairly well. This one just has more of a footprint. It has better support. It has a little better interface. And when I did my reference calls to districts, not only in our state, but around the country, I don't know if we could have gone wrong, but this one definitely stood out in terms of the best platform that those districts have experienced with their parent groups and with the students. So yeah, they weren't directly involved, but again, their feedback was part of our short list, and I put that on the board report. What are those criteria? This thing has to solve these problems, and that we tried to solve those problems we heard from students and parents.
Okay, board members.
So in regards to, it's a housing unit, obviously it's going to be as good as the teacher's involvement in putting information up there.
Yeah.
So, that's just kind of a concern. The other thing is, so is this system going to house soft systems that we already have, iReady, Lexia? So are we getting rid of Clever? So you just say it's kind of a one-stop shopping, which is what as an elementary parent kind of has been a frustrating point, because I have to go into Google Classroom, I have to go into Clever. So is this system going to provide that?
Actually, the Clever is going to still be there. It has to be used for authenticating into it. So the student still uses their badge or their login from a big portal of buttons, and they click the Canvas button, and it gets them into the system. They shouldn't have to use the other applications in Clever. No, because those links will come from the Canvas interface. And your first point is really what we're going to try to support our teachers with in the next few weeks and moving into the year to hold people accountable. We will have to use the system. It's only going to be as good as what we put in it, what we expect of our kids through it. And any way we go around it, then we're going to circumvent its usefulness. So that's on us as leaders to help our staff, help our teachers, help all of our users use the system. But you're exactly right. The concept is a student logs in, they click on Canvas says, here's what you're doing today or this week or whatever that timeline is. And I have my lessons. If it's iReady, that's where I get to that. If it's go to this big ideas math curriculum for today in middle school, that's where I go to that. I don't have to find that somewhere else. The teachers will be expected to have a template design that we're going to try to work on this summer, and they will then house all of those off-shooting points from that central spot. So the initial will still be Clever because we still love those badge logins for the littlest kiddos, so they don't have to remember login credentials.
So can you integrate Canvas into Clever?
Yeah.
So
that
it goes
was
both ways.
Yeah, on the back end, that was kind of my filters were different than the committee's. I really paid attention to the technical side of things. It'll integrate perfectly into Clever. We'll be able to stand it up very quickly and roster our classes into there automatically. So kids will just log into Clever, click on the big Canvas button. It'll take them right to their classroom, and that's it. There's no other navigation they would have to do.
Thank you.
One of the pieces, Maria, and I really appreciate you bringing it up, is the PD. We can't overlook that. And one of the conversations we had in cabinet yesterday was about our days as we get ready to think about when we bring staff back, how are we using our time together? And one piece that Ron continued to hammer home was we need to have sustainable time with Canvas so people know how to use it, because we recognize we have a wide range of staff and their tech understanding and their skills. So we're going to be very thoughtful about how are we going to support people and what does that look like for our staff. And we learned a lot through Jeff Utech and how he delivers some of that information. And Ron's going to kind of be our Jeff for this part of it, really taking what we learned from him and how do we support our educators so they feel really comfortable, because it has to be quality in, quality out, or you get the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a concern, unless you have buy-in from, the users of it, it's a huge expense. And to not get everybody on it, we don't have a buy-in completely, then the system just kind of goes poof and we're still stuck with the expenses. So, given the time, our current situation, that is a concern. So trust you.
I think that our buy-in is there based off of the staff surveys. They said the same thing. I mean, that was like loud and clear beyond just the focus groups. They're like, we have to figure out how we can navigate this. So that was one of the impetus for us to move down this road was based off of their needs, that they recognize they need this. It's not a nice to have, it is a must have for us. So I think we've got the buy-in because they experienced 3 months of 5 different login situations that parents and students were dealing with as well. Our teachers were also experiencing that same piece, but you're right. It's a big piece. It has to be at the forefront. And I think the other piece that I really like about Ron and Stacy and Mike's thinking on this, Canvas won't just be used for our hybrid and our online students. It is every day in class, COVID, no COVID. we're using Canvas to open our day and to start our lessons and to finish our lessons and to be able to say, here's your homework and this is where it's going to be housed at and here's your thinking. So kids are working on it daily, because what we do know around change is if it is only on a random basis, people won't buy into it. They'll only use it, on that every random once or twice a month. That's never going to change a system. We have to be using it daily. So that's what I really like about their plan.
And we'll also be using this for and cabinet will love it, because we're gonna house all our stuff in there, and we're gonna work with principals, and they're gonna house their PLC school meeting items in there. So it is going to be a system that is going to be quickly spread throughout all of our systems, so that this is where we deliver PD. This is where we deliver or house our instructional materials. And so that will be where we link from, and that's for kids and staff.
I want to key off what you've been talking about. More often than not, implementation is much more important than the choice. And I think everything you've been saying really reinforces that. So we've got to give implementation the best possible chance. And that means that timing is critical right now. And that's the end of my comment.
Stacy, I know you just jumped on camera. Anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, Maria, I just want to elevate your voice and what you just said about ensuring that the guts of the house are intact. And so we're working very hard with a team of about 15 individuals, leaders across the school district, in order to think about what our instructional design is going to be that gets housed inside of Canvas, so that it is consistent across K-12. For example, will the learning objectives be at the ready and at the forefront? How can we make learning visible digitally inside of this Canvas thing, so that families don't have confusion, students don't have confusion, and teachers don't have confusion? So that's currently on the roadmap of our strategic plan for the summer that we started July 1st, July 7th with a team of about 15, again, stakeholders. And then we will continue to expand that across the school district prior to August 18th. So yes, to your point, we have to have something that is aligned inside of Canvas that can communicate with stakeholders very well. And that is the work now. So thank you for that.
So my question is around, I appreciate the comment about implementation. Implementation, I don't know if I agree that it's more important than the choice. I still have concern.
Not necessarily, but often.
Yeah, I do have concern about the fact that we did not involve all the stakeholders in the process. I think it could have been easy to do, and parents, or in particular, already have an experience with using a system right now, and it's either working or not working for them. So they are going to want to know that the frustrations that they are experiencing are going to be taken care of by whatever it is that we're implementing. So, going forward, I just want to make sure that we're really mindful of involving all the stakeholders in our decisions that directly touch them particularly. My next question was about, professional development. We're going to quickly train people before the school year begins. I assume that's in the August Institute or whatever we call that thing. And, but I want to know if all teachers across the board have the tools in order to effectively utilize this management system. Because if we have folks that are operating on paper and pencil and aren't, using some kind of a platform already to push information out to students and receive it back in from families, do all teachers 100% across the board in our district have the tools already in place that will allow them to use this platform effectively once they are trained?
Are you speaking to the hardware tools or their own personal practice? Or both?
Well, first I want to know, do they have the tools at their disposal? That's really important from a district standpoint. Have we provided them with everything that they need? Not physically, because software and apps are virtual.
Mhm.
And then alongside that, have we provided the training, or how will we provide the training and support needed for everybody to operate really effectively and efficiently within this new practice and system?
So I'll speak to the tool side. I would say yes. The opportunity we had over the last 4 months, we had teachers who have had the tools, who have made decisions in the past to not be digital necessarily, but they have the stuff to be digital. So what the last 4 months showed us, and what it showed to many of them who hadn't been making that a priority, is that they can do it. They do have the resources to do it, and we can support it. So I think going into next year, what we're going to highly leverage is those professional learning community teams where teachers are collaborating. I'm going to venture to say we have a lot of strong teachers who live in this world, breathe in this world, and want to help their fellow professionals out who aren't maybe as strong. And so those teams are going to be extremely critical, because we will have leaders on each of those teams who love this digital world and can help their fellow teachers out. But our ongoing plan is to continue to leverage what PD days we have, what morning late start collaborations we have, to structure PD so that we can have a distributed delivery. It's not going to be a me, as in me, online training 700 all the time. It's going to be very distributed out, so we have key teacher leaders who have the expertise and the skills at the building level, the grade level, the content level, to do those small group teachings. And Canvas honestly stood out over all the other products in that respect, in that they have an extremely robust community of users with tens of millions of teachers using this product, but also robust resources. So I can go find little 5-minute videos that exactly address what we think they need to learn next. We can push that out, and we can distribute that across multiple teams so that they can learn that and then support each other as they implement.
May I add something as well?
Mhm.
Ron, absolutely. I love how you said that we're going to infuse that into the system in which we have, and take advantage of our professional learning opportunities inherently. And this summer, we will take the 15 individuals that are on the leadership team, and these individuals will be the trainers who train 68 additional individuals. And who will those 68 be, and what will we train people on? It will be 20 from the K-5 level, 1 individual from each school from each grade level. So that's how we got, 42 K-5 individuals, 1 per grade level, leader coming together in horizontal teams. We will have 6 individuals from the 6th through 8th grade levels, and we will have 20 individuals from Wenatchee High School. So a total of 68 leaders, plants, that we will implant into the school system, both for August 18th, 19th, and beyond. So what will we train the 68 on? We are going to train the 68 on the learning management system, Canvas. We are going to train the 68 on how to facilitate adult learning and adult thinking, or andragogy. And we are going to train people on unit planning, how you do all of that piece. So we're going to try to build as much internal capacity over the summer as possible, so that we won't be flat-footed on August 18th when everybody comes back and we say, here are your masks, here are your gloves, socially distance, and oh, by the way, here's another thing. That's just too much information for a couple of days of training, and really it's not fair to educators to do that. So we're doing a lot of work this summer to really build capacity with our thinking again around how we design learning, how we utilize our new learning management system, and how we facilitate the learning and thinking of adults. So I thank all of you for thinking big about the bigness of what we have from now until August 18th. And I appreciate Paul's leadership in really ensuring that we have a strategy to be successful.
So I heard you say at our secondary level, Wenatchee High School, what about West Side and the Skills Center?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes. 20 from the high school level. Thank you, Laura. And we also have an individual on the 15, the leadership team from West Side, Jennifer Devereaux. So yes, thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions or comments from the board? Staff, anything further?
No,
Okay.
I think we're good.
So this is an action item on our agenda today. Is there anyone prepared to move a motion forward?
I can do that. And so I'll propose a motion to approve the Canvas. I just wiped my screen away from the right amount now. The Canvas technology for learning platform for a total cost of $179,170 per the contract proposal in the board package.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
Further discussion? So just to clarify, that amount is a 3-year contract. The first year is a more substantial payment in the 90-some thousand dollar range, and followed by $250-ish thousand range.
Yeah, 67 for year one, which that year one is bigger because of implementation training services. And then the subsequent years are 55.9 currently. And that locks us in for 3 years of that, and then we renegotiate at that 3rd year timeframe.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Martin?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. So that motion carries. Thank you very much for being nimble and flexible and making a plan to help our students be successful moving forward. I appreciate your time and diligence in doing that.
Thanks
Laura,
for
I
asking
just
the hard
wanna-
questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to say that Ron nailed it. I mean, the amount of time and effort that he put into this to make this a robust conversation for our staff members. And you're right. I appreciate your push, Laura, on continuing to make sure that we're thinking about all those stakeholders being a part of it. But Ron literally was a rock star through this piece, and the countless hours to make this thing happen, and do it with with tons of fidelity, and really trying to listen to the voices. I just sincerely appreciated his leadership as he guided this through. So thanks.
Very good. Thank you. So that concludes the agenda items for us today. And I just want to confirm the next time we are going to be together is...
We may be a little sooner. We may need another special one for a potential hiring of a CFO. We're doing some background checks on an individual that we would like to move forward with, but we need to complete some work there. And then trying to figure out timing for that. So there may be one more meeting because it would be nice to get this individual on board sooner rather than later. And I'll send the board an email once we've finalized some background checks.
Okay. So are we all on track? We had a deadline of this week for the budget. We don't need to make any further budget decisions.
No, we're going to post. Karen is posting the F195, and that's due to be posted on July. We have to have that. It'll be posted tomorrow. for the board, and I did not receive any other feedback from the board. We were able to make the adjustments that the board, all the requests that the board made, we made that to the F-195 of staffing to look at the fund balance, making sure that we're not eating into that fund balance at a significant rate. So we took those pieces into consideration, and then we'll be back in August for the board to make that final decision.
Okay. And so you're going to let us know, do you anticipate that the special meeting will be next week? Is that?
That would be my hope,
Okay.
but it just depends on if Kelly and I are able to reach all the reference checks in the summer.
Sure. Okay. Well, stay tuned.
We just
I don't
miss
know
you
if
guys
any-
so much, so we'll just keep meeting.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any schedule conflicts, but it might be good to feel that out, before we actually get something on the calendar.
Okay.
All right. So if there's no further business, I will adjourn the meeting and see you all next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks all.
Yep.
Thanks.